Is your portfolio ready for this game of risk? Here's what I mean. There's a problem out there, and the problem is that when we talk about risk, we're talking about volatility. We're not talking about all the different types of risk. I help take care of that problem by explaining to my clients and my friends the different types of risks that we're up against. Let me tell you what I mean. So, typically, when we talk about investing for retirement and planning to create an income for the rest of your life, formulating a financial plan, we talk about risk tolerance in terms of volatility to your portfolio. So, risk tolerance then really becomes, hey, how much fear do you have of losing, and how much greed do you have where you want to gain? And I use the words fear and greed not in a judgmental way, but really just in what hurts the most. Does it hurt that I'm not gaining as much as I could, or does it hurt more that I'm losing more than I want to lose? Robert Thaler out of the University of Chicago, and there's going to be a link here in the bottom of this video. He explains how we are really have a loss aversion where we feel more pain when we lose than we feel pleasure when we gain. Interesting, isn't it? And then when we talk about risk with folks, really what we're talking about is volatility, the up and the down of your portfolio. But you know, there are several other types of risks that I want to talk to you about today. Not all of them, but some that are very important. One that I want to share with you is liquidity risk. A lot of people don't talk about it, but liquidity risk is actually a big deal that we need to discuss. Here's what I mean. Well, I'll start with a mild liquidity risk, one that's not quite as big of a deal perhaps to you. And that is when you put money into an IRA, a traditional IRA, you put that money in, it's locked in. For how long? Well, you can't take the money out until you're 59 and a half without what? A 10% penalty, right? So there's that 10% penalty. And then, of course, there is a taxation on the money that you take out of a traditional IRA. Well, that penalty before 59 and a half and that taxation as ordinary income at any age creates what? It creates a aversion to taking the money out. That's a mild, I would say, liquidity risk. You lock that money up and until you're 59 and a half, and you also delay taking that money out because of the taxation that you don't want to pay necessarily. Then there's also another type of liquidity risk, and that liquidity risk would be when you get into a product with a contingent deferred sales charge. So what is a contingent deferred sales charge? Well, it's a fancy way of saying perhaps surrender charge. These are really prevalent when it comes to variable and fixed indexed annuities and other types of insurance products. Even whole life insurance really has baked into the product a penalty, a loss of principal if you decide you want to take your money out. And typically these go from anywhere from 5, 7, 10 years, where if you take more than the allowed amount, then you are going to be dinged. You are going to be hit with a sales charge as you exit. What does that do? Well, it creates a great deal of aversion to taking money out of that particular investment, and that is a form of liquidity risk. Finally, perhaps the strongest of the liquidity risks are when you buy an actual illiquid product. So what's an illiquid product? Well, if you buy a stock, and that stock would be, something you could find on the New York Stock Exchange. You can buy it and you can sell it for whatever the going price is. And if it's a large stock of a company that you've heard of, it's most likely pretty liquid. And that liquidity will be fine. You'll be able to get in and get out. You may make money, you may lose money, but hey, somebody was there willing to take your stock from you for the price that they offered. Great. There are investments that are not liquid at all. There is no place for you to sell those products, to sell those investments. And when you have that type of liquidity risk, that's a serious liquidity risk. And I have people who come to me often with these types of investments. And you can read more about this if you'd like on a couple different blogs that I've done. One of the blogs and podcasts is called The Game of Risk. The Game of Risk. It's a podcast. Go to Pravada Wealth /podcast or /blog, and both in type and also in speaking on the podcast, I explain some of these. It's very important for you to get up to speed. Let me give you one more risk, and that is when you buy a bond outright. When you buy $5,000 to $10,000 of a bond, I will tell you, it's not necessarily easy to find a good and fair price in the bond market when you buy less than $1 million worth of bonds. So oftentimes the people who get the best price and the best liquidity for individual bond purchases are large corporations who buy and sell bonds for a living, because nobody wants just a little bitty slice of a bond. They want bulk, if you will. That's why you get a better deal buying bulk on toilet paper than you do buying one little thing at 7-Eleven. Same concept when it comes to bonds. So that's liquidity risk. Let me give you another one, and that's longevity risk. That's interesting. Longevity risk. What does that mean? Well, basically what it means is that you will last longer than the income from your portfolio. You will run out of money. And so when I talk to people, a lot of times they say, "Oh no, I'm 66 years old. I'll probably be dead in 10 years." People have a very negative view of their longevity, or let me put it another way, they underestimate how long they're going to live. If you look at it scientifically, actually just anecdotally, what age did your great-grandparents pass away? If they're still with you, good for you. But what age did your grandparents pass away? What age did your parents pass away? Remember that the age that they passed away, they lived at a time where there was less technology, less knowledge about what to eat, more pollution perhaps. And so longevity is on the uptick. So liquidity risk, longevity risk. There's a lot of different types of risks beyond volatility. And one of the things that's important to do is to take a look at your portfolio, to take a look at your financial plan, and quantify and qualify all of these different types of risk. Take a look at the podcast, take a look at the blog. And what I'd like to invite you to do is I'd like to invite to click the link below to schedule an appointment where we could talk a little bit about giving you a second opinion on the different types of risks that are really in your portfolio.